All right.
Well, I think, from our standpoint, Scott, we're doing basically anything that we can possibly do. We're trying to cope as best that we possibly can, trying to communicate with our athletes as much as possible. Our strength and conditioning coaches have been conducting our weight room classes as normal as possible in terms of trying to provide instruction and things like that. We provided our kids with a couple different, workouts. One of them is a workout where if they have access to weight equipment, they can do that. And the other one is just kind of a body weight. But the biggest thing for us right now is for our kids to try to keep up their speed. That's the thing that goes, and it's the most difficult to get back.
Yeah.
You could get back pretty quickly, but the speed we're a little concerned about. But at Bosco, we've never really had problems with speed, so I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, that is true. You guys got really a lot faster the last couple of years too. They have some young guys. There's four of us that are joining you, Coach, and part of what I was looking forward to also this spring, we kind of talked about a little bit at the basketball game, 3-4 weeks ago. You the talented young guys you have, and I was really looking forward to seeing some of those guys. Can you just, we kind of know the guys you've had around for a while, but who are some of the young guys that even you as the coach there we're looking forward to seeing this spring?
I think you're right, Scott, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing behind this. I mean, I think at the start of everything, you got to think of the seniors. Those are the guys, especially in the spring sport athletes, who are affected the most. But it's those underclassmen, football guys that, basketball kids that aren't going to have a spring recruiting that, hopefully doesn't affect them too much. But you're right. We have a lot of young guys. I mean, at one point, I told you at the basketball game during the De La Salle game, we had I think it was like 5 sophomores and a freshman on the field at one time in crunch time. So, we got some young guys. DJ's brother Mateo is one of he was the freshman. J9 is Jalen Woods is a really good talented player. Tavion Beasley is a Jackson Harley. So that side of the football, we got some really talented players. And then Rayshawn Luke, Jabari Bates, Michael Hayes, those 3 running backs are special. They're going to be kind of elite in their class, and they're only sophomores. So we're really happy about that. Adam Awada returns as a tight end. Edward Riley on the offensive line. Max Gibbs obviously is back. So we've got a lot of talented dudes that are returning. And, a lot of people are saying, well, gosh, Bosco lost a whole lot. Well, we still return a lot. And there was a lot of games where we had opportunities to play some young guys. So they got some experience, and they may not be household names right now. And it's unfortunate that guys like you aren't able to cover them in the spring. We just basically take our word on it that, we've had a reputation as a coaching staff to be able to evaluate talent. And when we call you guys and let you know about some of our players and what their potential is, you're going to have at least some content to be able to write about them.
Yeah. And going to St. John Bosco spring ball is like, there's a few schools in Southern California, Bosco, Mater Dei, Centennial, but Bosco, the organization that everybody's got their numbers and the uniform colors, and that spring showcase is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, to be quite honest with you. 50 college coaches out there watching. But I was going to ask one last question before the other guys start asking theirs. And you have had 2 quarterbacks at St. John Bosco that not many college coaches have ever had. The quality, the level of quality that you've had, in Josh Rosen and DJ. And both guys are first-round draft picks. DJ, from everything you see, is a future NFL first-round draft pick. But what is it about those guys how they were able, not just to be really good on a really good football team, but be great and make you guys not just a good football team, but state national champions?
Well, I think one thing that both of those kids had in common, which I think separated them from a lot of kids, is the character. Both of those guys, their character was just amazing. The type of individuals that they were incredibly well parented by both families, did a great job in bringing those guys up. They were both very humble kids. And, anytime you were to interview Josh or anytime you interviewed DJ, they were first, quick to recognize the abilities and what their coaches, had put together in terms of a game plan. They were always recognizing the offensive line, the skill positions around them that made them that much better. And I think that's one of the reasons why, obviously, they chose to come to a place like Bosco. They're always going to be surrounded by a lot of talented players. So they were always quick to kind of deflect the success to other people. And I think if you look at that, it's pretty, you know, that's a characteristic or a trait that's pretty special for those young men. And I think it kind of permeates to the rest of our team because everybody kind of absorbs what they're talking about. They realize that your best players are speaking in this manner and your best players are your hardest workers. It just really makes it easy for our team and for me as a coach to be able to disseminate my message to all these guys by saying, look at these two, you use them as an example and try to pattern and tailor your work ethic behind theirs. And then you're going to be very successful, or at least as successful as you can possibly be.
You guys?
Yeah. Hey, Coach. Good to see you again. How you doing?
Good.
So Bosco has never had a problem attracting top-end talent.
Mm-hmm.
You as a coach have to evaluate some of the talent to fill the roster that, you know, might not be that top end.
Yep.
When you're going through that evaluation process on the back end, there comes a time where you might have to tell a young man, hey, you might not fit the team.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that process and how you work through that?
Well, I don't think that's a situation that's just unique to Bosco. I think, you know, we have it a little bit more because we do have the volume of talented athletes are just that much greater, I think, than your normal high schools. We've become a destination, like Scott mentioned, you know, Modern Day, Centennial.
Right.
You know, there's some really good programs out there that are doing some of the very similar things that we're doing. But that's a great question. And I think basically is I'm very realistic and I'm honest with my guys. And I think that's something that they respect out of me. And we communicate a lot. You know, one of the things we don't do is we're not going to post depth charts and things like that because we want to continue to let our kids know that you're going to have to compete, you know, throughout the entire season. And it's not just, a one evaluation period. We feel that every practice opportunity is an opportunity for us to be able to evaluate our guys and to be able to take a look at them. And then, you know, we honestly try to do a pretty good job of playing as many possible kids as we can. We're a 2-platoon team. So
Sure.
We're playing, you know, maybe 16, 18 guys on defense and maybe 17, 18 guys on offense. So it's not just 11 on offense and then, you know, you're playing 7 on defense because you got 4 crossovers. You know, we're trying to really platoon it. We play a lot of kids on special teams, especially when they're young, to kind of cut their teeth because we tell them when you get to college, that's where you're going to start out at. So you better get used to it. So I think it's just a culture that we have built. And ultimately, it's just being fair and it's being honest to our guys and letting them know. And unfortunately, we have a lot of talented kids that are in our program that leave to go to other programs because they're impatient. And I think that's one of the things I talk about constantly with my guys. Be patient. Josh Alford comes to mind. He was a corner for us last year. And Scott, as you guys know, he's a very talented guy. But he waited. He sat behind Trent McDuffie and Chris Steele. And he was our nickel guy as a junior, but then he waited. He was patient in the program, and now he's going to Idaho State on a full-ride scholarship. You know, and hopefully the platform that we provided for him allowed him to do that. So I'm proud of those guys, and the guys that leave and they search out for other opportunities. Hey, that's, you know, I'm going to support them. I'm going to get behind them. Never going to talk negatively about them. And as they continue to progress through their careers, and it seems like the quarterback position, you know, Mission Viejo is making a living on Bosco quarterbacks. I don't know they've developed that, you know, at all. But, you know, it's basically they're living on our guys from Yellen to Castelli and guys like that. So, hey, as long as these kids are going to play and they're getting to college, that's the ultimate goal. So I encourage that.
Great.
No, and you had a good question too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I appreciate that answer only because there is so much similarity now between the high level high school and college now.
Sure.
That I think it's important that you're able to express those ideas now, because otherwise it's a slap on the face when they, you know, get to that next level.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say one thing real quick on that is that what a lot of people fail to understand about where things have gotten with some of these high school football programs like Bosco, Mater Dei, De La Salle, Centennial. Some of the programs back east, like St. Francis Academy, IMG, you know, whatever. We all know who the top programs are. You know, they are no longer playing for state championships. So, you know, things are different on the way that they have to proceed with you know, bringing in talent and stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of times you hear guys, parents talking about, oh yeah, goes to Bosco. You know, he just wants to, you know, the hype and what it is, and Bosco's just taking whoever they want. Well, yeah, you know what? They are taking whoever they want, and you know what? It's a great place to be, and they're playing for state championships. They're playing for national championships, and man, how could you not love that? And you're being groomed by one of the best coaching staffs in the country at one of the top schools in the country. Anyway, that was my rant.
Hey, Coach. Blake Atwell here. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man?
So you mentioned it a couple times in your last answer, the culture at Bosco, right? And obviously, it's no secret you guys have top-tier talent, really good athletes every year. But in order to compete for state championships year in and year out, you have to have that culture. So when you first got the job at Bosco and sort of what you've done since you've been there, what are some things that you've done to establish that culture? And do you think that culture is something that breeds guys like DJ and Josh to be those leaders?
Yeah, without question. I think the first thing that I did when I got to Bosco was realize that the school has always had a ton of talent. I mean, we're in a talent-rich area. Being in Southeast LA, kind of where we're at, right at the 105, 605 freeway. We're freeway accessible to almost anywhere in Southern California in terms of getting to our campus. The all-male, student body, kind of factors in and helps us out a lot in terms of keeping kids focused on what their goals are, and that's get a good education and make sure they do what they need to do athletically. But building a culture is important. I think the first thing that I started with, and I think this is a great question, is I invested in human capital, and that's something I've talked about a lot. And that's basically surrounding yourself with people that are very, very talented. And one of the mantras that I always talk about is if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm probably in the wrong room. I want to try to get as many talented people around me and then let them go to work. I like to try to entrust my guys with our program, and I give them a lot of autonomy to go and do the things that they need to do to develop our players. And the more people you can get like that within your program that are working with smaller groups, it just makes that much easier when we come together as a collective group, as a team. And I think that and the consistency that we have had over the years to being as excellent as we possibly can. Bosco is a place, like Scott said, it's a destination. A lot of people want to come to it, but it's not a fit for everybody. And that's certainly the case. Like Mark, you were saying, if you kind of compare it to a college, you got to pick your school that's going to work out for you, and timing's right. When Josh Rosen was at school, we weren't having a lot of quarterbacks come in behind him. And when DJ was there, we didn't have a lot of quarterbacks, that were behind him, or the guys that were behind him, they all leave, so, you have to make sure that the timing is right. You have to build the culture the right way by doing things the right way and trusting the coaches and the staff that you have. And I have an amazing administration. The student body, the teaching staff, and the faculty at St. John Bosco really understand what we're trying to accomplish. And like Scott said, we're trying to be a national program. And I think if you have those type of mentality in your approach, that it's just going to kind of snowball effect within your entire, athletic department. And it certainly has taken off in our program. So it's something that we want to continue. And kids are coming to our school because they have an opportunity and a platform to play in these massive games in front of great stadiums all over the country. And against some teams that they get to compete against at the rivals camps or the opening and those types of things. And I think that's what kids want. And when we're obviously provide it for them.
And I'll tell you what, if you go to St. John Bosco practices and you're around that program enough times, you probably see more in practices than you will see in the games. But you will see how Jason is his guys are off doing their thing. He is not all over them, hovering over them and micromanaging. But it is a talented staff, and also it's a staff of guys that they don't take it easy on their players, but the kids at the same time love their coaches, and I think that chemistry that you see at St. John Bosco is also unique.
Well, without question. I mean, kids want to be challenged. Kids want to be coached hard. If you want to be in our program and we talk about being great or being elite, or those are the things that you want to try to strive for, then you better have the people that are teaching you with that same mindset. And it's not just on the field. It's in their preparation leading to the field, whether they're in the weight room and they're trying to push our guys to get that extra set or the extra rep in, or when they're in the meetings and they're taking every bit of that time that they have available to instruct our players and to show some extra film or to try to, talk about the schemes at which we're trying to install later on in that practice. My guys take a very, very diligent approach to that. And I think our kids see it and they appreciate it. And that's the reason why they're going to work hard for them when they're out there on the field. And then if you put that type of work in at practice, it just makes it that much easier come game night.
Hey, Coach, this is Brandon. I heard you mention earlier that kids come to Bosco and they expect to play in those big games. So I want to ask you, how do you guys work that schedule, scheduling those national powers out for the non-league?
Well, it's a disaster right now. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because right now in our 2020 schedule, I have 2 games scheduled, and those are probably going to be in limbo too. So if you look back to 2019, we played 5 out-of-state opponents. You know, and it's difficult. It's a challenge. You know, obviously we have to travel. So we went to Hawaii and we went to Vegas last year twice. And then I had 3 teams come in, you know, 2 from the Maryland area and 1 come from New Jersey. So finances are very important. So, you know, you have to have a very good donor base to be able to help out. And you have to have some, you know, creative and some clever fundraising to be able to, you know, to provide some travel stipends for these teams, because we basically really separated ourselves to where people in the state don't want to play us. And it's unfortunate, and I feel bad about that. But I can understand it as well a little bit. But in terms of what I do is I work with a lot of brokers across the country, and these guys know people, and they call some people, and they try to, you know, set things up with some of these national teams. And a lot of these groups, you know, they're looking to play teams like ours. The hardest part for us that I feel most bad about was, like, in 2016, we had to travel twice, once down to Florida to play St. Thomas Aquinas. And then 2 weeks later, we turned around and had to fly to St. John's in Washington, D.C. to play those guys. And I feel bad for our community because, you know, it's not a college where our students can fly all over the country to watch us play, or the parents have that kind of resources to fly to Florida, turn around, fly to D.C., you know, in one single season. So I feel bad about that. And that's something that is concerning to me, because I'm taking away a little bit of the high school experience. But at the end of the day, you know, our kids want these games. I'm trying to bring as many teams as possible into Bosco to play us at our place. And now that we have the stadium, it's allowing us to do that. So it's a little bit, you know, program friendly for the families to come in. But it's getting harder and harder, Brandon. I mean, like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do if those other teams are, you know, we have travel bans coming this fall. What's going to happen? Because, I mean, we may not play a preseason.
Yeah,
that's definitely a special situation.
It's very scary. I honestly, I do not. That's the biggest thing that's keeping me up at night right now, is trying to fill a schedule.
Yeah, I bet.
Coach,
wait, fire away.
Coach, can you give USC fans some information about the kind of player and the kind of kid they're getting in Kobe Pepe?
Oh, he's a relentless player, man. I think Kobe Pepe is just honestly starting to break free from his new position. I mean, you know, he's only played D-line for 3 years. You know, as a freshman, he was our starting Mike backer. So it tells you a little bit about his ability and his skill set in terms of his you know, athleticism and his ability to be able to run around a little bit. And then through middle of spring ball of his sophomore year, he just started getting bigger and bigger and more physical. And we said, you know, we had a need at the D-line spot. We said, Kobe, you probably have a better opportunity getting on the field faster as a sophomore if you're playing the D-line. And, you know, he was super open to that. So I think we're just really starting to see him scratch the surface on how talented he can be. And if you're going to win at the collegiate level, if you look at some of the ACC and the SEC teams, you know, or even Ohio State, one thing that I really noticed is the D-line play is really the key factor. O-line and D-line play is important. Yeah. And when SC had it rolling, you know, back in the Pete Carroll days, their O-line and D-lines were just monsters, and they matched everything that those SEC, ACC, and Big Ten schools had. So he's that kind of guy. And I think that his ability to perform at such a high level in games that we played against some of the, you know, really good offensive lines that he's had to play against and through his career at Bosco is going to prepare him. SC's going to see a guy that's going to be a difference maker on the inside.
I want to add this to Kobe Pepe. I asked Chris Steele and Trent McDuffie.
Yep.
They were done. You know, you guys had finished the football season, and so it was over. And I said, all right, tell me who the top guy for 2020 is, not named DJ.
Yeah.
And they both said Kobe Pepe, and they maybe not the most talented. I don't know. They weren't trying to say he was this or that. He was a talented dude with a work ethic that was off the charts. And you know, they just watched Kobe kind of. Was he a lead by example guy?
Yeah, if you know about him, he's not a very demonstrative guy. He's not a rah scream and yell. If he makes a big play, or you know, or if he happens to get handled on a certain play and doesn't do his job, or gives up a play and has a negative, he still reacts the same way. And I think that's one of the things, you know, for a guy like that, is really, really important to understand, you know, for USC fans to really know about his personality. He's quiet. He's just kind of a lunch pail type mentality in terms of getting to practice, getting to work, getting to the games, and just producing. And I think if you had an opportunity to see us play Centennial in that semifinal game, Kobe Pepe literally had one of the most impressive single game performances against one of the most dynamic offenses that we've ever had to compete against that night. So if you have a chance, go back and look at that. And you want to know about Kobe Pepe, take a look at that night.
Coach, you know, and I know you have to balance your comments here delicately. You've been involved with recruiting with USC over the years. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the differences, maybe in big differences or subtle differences that you've noticed over the last couple of years compared to what they've been doing over this last year before the face-to-face contact got cut off?
You know, it's interesting that you say that because there was a shift, you know, from the time at which they were pretty much getting anybody across the country that they wanted to the time now where, you know, they're struggling and kids are leaving the state and going elsewhere. Right. One of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know, and I can't put my finger on why it has happened, but back in the day when they were in their most elite time, you know, to get an offer from SC was super hard. They were very selective. They were almost Clemson-esque, like what Clemson's doing now. To get an offer from Clemson, you have to be very, very, very special, and you have to demonstrate like an elite status. And I think SC was at that at one point when they had, you know, Sanchez and Liner and Reggie Bush and all those guys. I mean, to get an offer from SC, it was like super, super special. And then I think there was a shift in there somewhere where it seemed like they had some instability at the coaching staff. And then what happened was there were so many offers out there, it devalued that offer. And I think it lost their ability to go across the country and get guys from New Jersey or get guys from Florida or Texas to kind of balance out what they were missing from the Southern California recruiting. So where that shift happened and why it happened, you know, I think it was the instability of the coaching staff at the time. But I think Coach Helton is going to swing that pendulum back the other way, make it a little bit more difficult to get that coveted offer. Because if you make those offers coveted, you're going to start elevating the level of player that you're getting.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be offering, if you're USC, I mean, I'm no disrespect to the talent level of players, but you should be like, you know, and I'm not a big star guy, but if you're going to use it in recruiting languages, you know, you want to go get those 4- and 5-star guys.
Yeah.
Go get those.
Great point, Coach.
Right. And I think that if you do that and you get back to that is what they were at, you know, the latter time of Coach Carroll, SC is going to rise right above. And it can happen quickly. I think that's one of the things that people really need to understand.
Very quickly.
A shift like that can happen super fast.
Especially with the landscape in Southern California with high school football. And speaking on that, how, if I'm a young 7th, 8th grade young man in the Bellflower area, how does one go about getting interest from the St. John Bosco football program or even getting involved with having a chance to go there as a freshman? How does that process all go down?
Well, I think the advertisement and the marketing that we're doing in our program right now is kind of selling itself. I mean, we're doing a really good job of putting ourselves, whether it's on TV, social media, you know, we're checking all the boxes when it comes to like trying to reach out to a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grader to try to get them to come to our school. And, you know, when people say, oh man, Bosco, you guys recruit. Well, heck yeah, we recruit. We recruit every single student that comes to our school. That's not a lie. I mean, that's something that we have to do. We don't have grammar schools. We don't have feeder schools. We don't have state mandates where people are saying you have to go to St. John Bosco. So if we don't get students and we don't go out and recruit students, then we're in trouble. Now, the thing that you have to understand is you have to do legal recruiting. You have to do it right, and you have to make sure that you're abiding by all the CIF mandates and things like that, which I think as a school we're doing a pretty good job of. It's very, very difficult because we have a lot of ambassadors out there and a lot of fans that want to try to push kids to our school and push kids to our program. And that becomes difficult for us and for me as the head coach who's responsible for this to manage it all. But I'm trying to really do a good job of just providing young kids opportunities. In January, February, March, you know, we have some academies and we ended up working between 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, 260 players in January and late February through those months of new kids that would potentially want to come to Bosco through our youth camps. And then we kind of meshed that into, 7-on-7 programs and some things like that we're able to do. And our coaches are able to get out there and to work with student athletes and things like that. And just kind of, not necessarily, flying the Bosco flag, but just trying to educate and to coach young men and try to give them an opportunity to see what we're all about and what our school is. And I think our admissions department does a great job of hosting some high school nights. And if you're at Bosco on a Friday night in a big game, it's a pretty special environment. And I think when kids come to that and they see it, they're going to want to be around it. So right now, I think just winning, Brandon, honestly, is what's marketing our program.
Right. One thing that was told to me early on, this is maybe, it wasn't so early on for you because you've been at St. John Bosco for a significant amount of years now, but was that you took over at St. John Bosco, and I'm sure that you've had offers to coach at college programs, but the way it was put to me is you wanted to build St. John Bosco into a high school program and make it as much like a college program as you can in high school. So you're going to have this program, and ultimately, you could kind of create your own job security, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the stability at Bosco obviously is a lot better than going to the collegiate level. And honestly, if I was to go to the collegiate level, they're not going to hire me as a head coach anywhere and say, okay, come run my program. Yeah. You're going to come in an entry level position. You're going to have to work your way up. You're going to have to hitch your wagon to the coach that's currently there. The landscape of college football there is no patience with these guys anymore. And, some of the elite programs, certainly. I mean, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, Notre Dame, schools like that, they're keeping their coaches. And that these guys are going to be there. But you see these recruiters come through each and every spring and then into the fall, and you're like, oh, my gosh, you're at this school now? And they just switch polos.
That is so true, though. I mean, it freaks me out sometimes too. I'll see one guy at St. John Bosco, for example. One year he's got an Arizona, he's there. So next year he's like with Boston College, like some random move,
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, so what happens is I want a stable lifestyle. I like where I live. I like I have 2 daughters, and I like the schools at which they go to. And I want to try to provide and to support for them. And I don't want a whole lot of uncertainty in my life. I really like having the opportunity to work at Bosco. I'm an alumnus of the class of 1991, so it means a little bit more to me. I grew up, and my parents still live in the city of Bellflower, which is about, they live about 1.5 miles from the school. So to me, Bosco's home. It's an opportunity for me to coach really talented guys. And, shoot, like you said, Scott, I've had a chance to coach 2 future first-round NFL quarterbacks. And
right.
That doesn't really happen at too many schools. And I'm one to quickly recognize the fact that the opportunities that we have had and the success that I have had is because of who Bosco is, and being a part of the Trinity League and being a part of Southern California, Division I, open division, all those things. This cannot, what we've done, be duplicated at every other high school. And I think people need to understand that.
But we're going to be the ones that are going to give you credit because
thank you.
Just look at USC and UCLA. You're in the heart of Los Angeles. There's no excuse, really, for not at least being in that Pac-12 championship game every year. One of those 2 schools. And
so what's hurting those guys too, Scott, you have to remember, I think the conference is hurting them. The conference and the conference commissioner and, their TV deal is just so bad. I mean, here it is. I'm the head coach at St. John Bosco. I come home on a Saturday night, and I cannot watch a Pac-12 game. I mean, that to me is silly.
Right.
I mean, and you as the commissioner have to start saying, how do I get the Pac-12 network into all of these households?
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm living in Orange County, and, here it is. I'm on DirecTV, and I can't watch a Pac-12 game. And now these kids are saying, well, listen, would I rather go to Notre Dame and play on NBC, or to go play on ESPN on the Saturday night game of the week or do I want to play at 10 o'clock Eastern time on the Pac-12 network being viewed by 1 million people? I mean, the commissioner and the Pac-12 needs to do something about it. They got to up their revenue, give these guys more money, allow them to hire more people within their programs so they can go out and compete recruiting wise with some of these.
Right.
I'm looking for the button where I can give you a cyber hug right now, Coach, because you were preaching to the choir, not just to USC fans, but to the Pac-12 fans in general.
Yeah.
You saw a perfect example of what happened to Colorado when they lost Mel Tucker. I mean, it was strictly about money. They didn't have the resources to play the game with the Big Ten, bottom line. And when you lose the head coach, you're losing good assistant coaches, and it's just a cycle that you can't replace.
Without question. I think if you look at the programs that have been pretty stable, Utah's done a really good job with Coach Winningham there. I think they recruit really well, to get kids to go to Salt Lake and to be a part of that program. He's done a phenomenal job there. I thought Coach Peterson did an amazing job up at Washington, with his whole OKG type, mentality and trying to get our kind of guys. And I think Coach Lake will get that, to continue. I think Coach Cristobal is doing a really good job. He understands what it takes to recruit. Because obviously he spent so much time at whether it be Miami or down in Alabama with Coach Saban, so I think you're right. I mean, the conference as a whole needs to elevate. And I think if they elevate the conference, all ships are going to rise with rising tides. And I think that's one of the things that's important is for the conference as a whole to rise, then everybody else is going to, elevate their level of play as well.
I think another interesting fact when it comes to Pac-12 recruiting is, the majority of the recruiting is all centrally located in Southern California for all of those teams, which is different from most other conferences, who kind of spread across, the majority of the region, when you got everybody coming into USC and UCLA's backyard for their top recruits. That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, well, it makes it tough. I mean, it certainly spreads out the talent. If you look at Colorado back in their heyday, they were pulling kids out of LA all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where they were really, really good. And then I think if you look at some of the Oregon schools, Oregon and Oregon State, I mean, shoot, there was a time Oregon's plastering billboards in downtown LA. I mean, that was pretty gutsy move.
I mean, the irony of that, I think it happened like right there. Carroll was hired, right?
Yeah.
So Pete was hired and they went down really fast.
Yeah, no, without question. But I mean, it just goes to Brandon's comment, when he talks about, LA being a destination. It's not just St. John Bosco. I mean, you fly into LA, you have a look at so many different athletes all the way from Ventura County all the way down to San Diego. And these guys are coming in and plucking athletes, to 12 schools out there and trying to get them to go play. The Arizona schools, you look at them. I mean, Arizona State.
And that's not even counting the national schools, the Clemsons and the Georgias and Floridas that come get our guys.
But the thing for me though, and I'm not asking for you to say yes or no to this, Coach, but and your entire coaching staff knows that USC was flat out just not doing their jobs recruiting. I mean, they have a different staff right now. The whole mentality and approach to recruiting has changed. But the last 2 years at USC, it was awful. They were not at your school. They were not at Modern Day. You would see ASU, you would see Oregon and Washington, and all these other Pac-12 schools on your campus multiple times. USC would show up the last day of spring, and that was it. That was part of the problem.
Well, 100%. I mean, and I had those conversations with Coach Helton and told him about it. And hopefully, obviously it's kind of hard for him to fix this year because nobody's out recruiting. But it was a concern of his. I will tell you this. I flat out told him, I said, Coach, here's the situation. We had our college showcase that you talked about. We had 11 of the 12 Pac-12 schools there. There was one school not there that day. So when we reached out and said, hey, how come you guys haven't RSVP'd? How come you don't have anybody coming here? And the attitude was kind of like, we're SC, we're not going to come on a meat market day. And I'm like, well, you're missing the whole point. That's the problem. Right now, you're missing the point. It's not about, you being there. It's just about having your logo in our stadium and for our kids to be able to see it. So if you got a kid that wants to go to SC, so say a Kobe Pepe, he wants to go to USC, it's his dream school, and he's looking around in his D-line work that day, and he's trying to identify who that SC guy is to watch him, and he's not there. I mean, really? And they came the next day, which we basically had a day off in the weight room, and our kids are like, all right, great, thanks for coming. So it was a problem. It was a problem, and it was something that Coach Helton addressed. He certainly was open to hearing about it. And I really value him and I respect him for that by asking the hard questions and accepting the tough ansers.
Because I also know you think very highly of Clay Helton. Clay Helton, I believe you were telling me a story. It may not 100%, may have been Chad. Pardon me bringing up his name. He's now at Mission Viejo, but either you or Chad went over to USC, and Clay Helton, had 2-3 hours to spend with you guys, and so Clay Helton was kind of being Clay Helton. I just don't think his other guys were doing their job. But Clay, I believe you're right. Clay is listening to people and the feedback, and I, we'll see what the outcome. I was looking forward to seeing what the outcome was, because I pictured them showing up to your showcase this year with the entire coaching staff, to be honest.
Oh, without question. And I think he was going to address it. And it's kind of unfortunate that this happened, because you're not going to see the changes from 19 to 20 in terms of the way that they're recruiting the Southern California athlete at the elite schools. So that's kind of unfortunate, but they still are doing a really good job of continuing to keep us on the phone and doing the things that they need to do. I mean, they just offered Rayshawn Luke the other day. One of our, fastest, little speedy backs that we have. So obviously, they're taking a very, solid approach to the evaluation process, and they're being patient, and now they're getting these elite guys. And instead of just throwing out offers, like Oprah, hands out freaking.
You get an offer. You get an offer.
Being a little bit more selective, and I think that goes a long ways with kids.
Yeah.
Well, that was
one year we were talking about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll one year, remember, we're not supposed to talk with coaches about names of kids, but he told me how many scholarship offers that they had out toward right at the end of the recruiting process. 46.
Yeah. Now it's like 246.
Now it's like 246.
Well, they kind of jumped on the bandwagon. They saw every other school out there doing it, and they were behind in the recruiting times. And so they figured, hey, let's start throwing out offers out there like everybody else, throwing them to, sophomores that we haven't evaluated correctly yet, and then never talk to the guy again. So,
but as Coach said, it devalues the offer. And that was the point that I got out of that, what you were talking about.
Well, and most of the offers, and there's a difference too, because a lot of these kids are getting offers, but they're not what they call committable.
Committable, right?
Right now, when and I've had a lot of time to spend with the Clemson staff over the last couple of years. Obviously, they're recruiting our guy pretty hard. They got Bo Collins to commit, and things like that. So they're continuing to recruit our guys. And one of the things that I've noticed with those guys is they won't offer a guy unless it's committable, and that's pretty. So if they're going to offer a kid, they better be prepared for that kid to say, yes, I'm committing right now, because every offer that they offer is a committable offer. And I think that's pretty interesting to me.
Yes.
And I think that, again, goes back to what my earlier comments were, that I think, at some time there in the transition of coaches from Coach Carroll to now Coach Helton, that was lost. That exclusivity thing was gone. And I think they need to get that back.
Agreed.
All right. Well, this won't be a football question. Well, it'll be partly related, but
okay.
I've introduced Mark to Taco Nazo, and I've been telling the story. And I've been telling the story that when Clemson shows up, when Michigan when Ohio State shows up, St. John Bosco, they go straight from there to Taco Nazo. Am I correct?
I mean, if you're in Bellflower and you don't go to Taco Nazo to get some ceviche and some shrimp tacos, you got a problem.
Yes.
And we're selling, we want these guys to come back, Scott. We don't want them to just come back for our athletes, but if they're going to come into town, they better come, and you better provide them a restaurant that they're going to be able to take advantage of. And
right.
Mark, as you know, Taco Nazo is the place. So anytime you guys want to go, when this thing's over, hit me up and we'll stop over there.
I said this guy, I don't want to work here during lunch and dinner hours, because that's just crazy.
And then the best part about it is they have like 2 restaurants like on one location. They got the little small place on the outside where you can just get your quick fix before you hit the freeway right there at the 605. Or you can go sit down inside, get a cocktail.
Have a michelada.
Yeah, there you go. And then sit down and have some, you can enjoy your ceviche and have some shrimp tacos. It's an amazing place, and Bellflower is a cool city.
It is. It really is. I mean, I love your campus. I love your school. It's just there's something. It feels good being on your campus. And Coach, we won't keep you forever. We can talk to you forever. We'll have you on again when practices resume. And thank you so much for doing this, man. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Anytime, let me know. I appreciate your candid, honest answer, your questions, and anything you want to know about me. I mean, I'll tell you, my angle on it. I've been around quite a while, and I've had some experience in doing this, and I'm very, very fortunate. I'm in the position that I'm in, and I really value what you guys do in terms of promoting the high school athlete, promoting high school football, because right now, there's not a whole lot of positivity going on in the world, but if you guys provide a little bit to some of your subscribers and to some of the people in the Trojan community there, it's going to be great. And we certainly want to see our kids successful, and it's a lot easier, to get to USC than it is to Clemson, South Carolina, I'll tell you.
That is true.
So on the selfish side of me, to watch our kids play, it would be kind of nice if they were close.
Amen.
Yeah, but it is also cool that you got a kid at Clemson, you got kids at Ohio State. If I was a head coach at St. John Bosco, I would love the fact that my kids are at every elite program in the country. But it is cool having them close to home.
Yeah, what was really cool is when we went to Phoenix and we got to watch the college football semifinals, and it was Ohio State Clemson. So we took DJ and Court Williams. Those guys both went with us. So we, on the day before the game, we were over at the Clemson hotel, and it was kind of funny because we had to leave Court in the car. So we left Court in the car and said, "Hey man, we'll be back." And then we went and hung out with Coach Sweeney and the Clemson staff, and DJ obviously got the key to any door into that facility. So we got to hang out with them at their hotel. And then the next day we went over to the Ohio State hotel. We left DJ back at our place and got to have, a sit down talk with Coach Day. And again, I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for the athletes that I have in our program. And we understand that, but it's also my responsibility to continue to develop them. And then to be able to go to that game and watch these two young men and see Wyatt Davis, who's a starting guard at Ohio State, run out of the tunnel and give us a thumbs up as he's coming off the field was pretty special.
Yeah,
awesome.
That is cool.
Hey,
cool. Thanks again. Appreciate it, Coach.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
Right on.
Fear the spear.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, that St. John Bosco program is just really cool to be around. You spend some time around it, and you get to know the coaches, and they're guys I all think very highly of as well. And so we're gonna connect with Chris Claiborne right off the bat here, because we're now at 7.
Am I the only one who's saying just Josh Ann's name and not Josh?
Yeah, Josh is muted too. He can't.
Yeah,
he
didn't
can't
connect.
I think Josh is tweeting. He's gonna tweet from the Chris Claiborne
He's
thing.
chatting at me. Hold on, what's going on? Here?
Josh says we're good.
We're good.
Is Josh tweeting for us? Is that what's happening?
He's going. I think he says, "Can I tweet?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, you're the tweeter in chief. Come on.
That's
all right.
awesome.
Not to pat ourselves on the back and break our arms, but that was a solid interview session, guys.
Also, Coach Negro is the best, man.
Dude,
candid. Love him.
Answers.
I mean, like when I was in high school, I would do like post-game on-camera interviews and stuff, and he was the he doesn't care if you're Fox Sports or if you're a junior in high school. Like he treats everybody the same. So really cool.
Big fan here. So, all right, I'm gonna send an invite to another one of my favorite dudes ever, Chris Claiborne.
I think one of the things too that people really take notice of is USC Scoop has quite the connections around Southern California when it comes to football. I know some other folks might be doing some other stuff, but I mean, who's getting, the national championship high school coach?
Look, that interview could have gone on forever. People don't realize, we talk about Bellflower, but Bellflower is such a small little segment of an area surrounded by Long Beach.
Yeah.
And Inglewood, and just, they're in a prime area of big talent.
Oh yeah.
Is Big T in Bellflower? There
Who?
used to be this golf course. Big T used to be this 9-hole golf course. There was a golf course. That was the only thing I knew about Bellflower one time. Maybe it was called Bellflower Golf Course. It was I knew nothing about Bellflower at all, and I grew up in Huntington Beach. And it's not like Bellflower's that far, but.
When I was coming up, Bosco had a pretty good program. I looked into it as a 8th grader. I wasn't that talented, but my mom was into me trying to get into a private school at the time. But the thing that scared me off was the all boys aspect. I couldn't deal with that on a day.
Scares off a lot of guys.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, to me, that's just that's an odd thing, going to school without girls.
I mean, I know they have a few co-ed classes from the girls' school across the street, but I guess it shows a level of dedication, too, when you go there for a specific reason.
Yeah, it's like I look at Bosco. They're the San Antonio Spurs of high school football. You know what I mean? Like They just not made for everybody. But
what's up? Hey, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, there's Coach.
He's got to connect his audio. Bottom left corner.
Can he hear you? Do you think he can hear you?
Maybe.
Coach, in the bottom lower left corner.
There it is. Got it.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
All right. What up, fellas?
What's
up,
going
Coach?
on?
What's going on?
Can you see me? I'm
Yeah.
out here in the backyard, getting some fresh air.
Yeah.
Man has been cooped in his house, so and then right now the wife is remodeling the house and painting and
Sounds like my house,
so,
man.
yeah,
We got all
everything's
types of
like on-
projects.
Yeah, everything is on hold. It's on pause right now.
So, yeah, it is kind of this time is very, very crazy, and we're all trying to find stuff. We're like making stuff up daily on how we're going to keep ourselves busy. What are you doing to pass the time by? But you have family, so I know you got that going on.
I'm Principal Claiborne. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
During the day, helping Mama out. I'm assistant principal, actually. She's a boss. But I try to help the girls. And then for me, I'm just studying a lot of different parts of the game, whether it's 2-minute drills, where it's certain situations in the game, how the game is affected. Like, I'm really trying to dig deep into that part of the game because it's certain little things like that, whether when to call a timeout, when not to call a timeout, when to go for two, those type of things I'm trying to brush up on and learn and understand why you're doing what we're doing.
I'll let you guys ask them about USC playing time, playing days, and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people know Chris Claiborne, Long Beach Poly, right?
Yeah, I did my little thing over there.
USC, NFL, they know Chris Claiborne, the player, but you got involved in coaching. You didn't jump in all in. Did you kind of started off training and then you got some assistant jobs? Just give us the background on how you got into coaching, because it was kind of similar like Curtis Conway. He got into coaching just kind of like, I'll do this, but then he turned out he absolutely had a passion for it.
Well, I think, for me, it was like, I think in most athletes, you're like, what do I do when you're done? Because what happens is you're so used to the schedule and the calendar in your life of, I know where I'm going to be at in May. I know what I'm going to do after the draft. I know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to know what I'm going to do there. I'm going to have, a month off, and then I'm going to be back in camp. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like trying to figure that out. And then, coming home where there's so much talent in the Inland Empire, I just wanted to help out, wanted to give back. So started working, doing that. We started the 7-on-7. Actually, I started off working with I had like a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and like a 6-year-old, or 6-year-old and 9-year-old. John and Ernie. I started with those little guys and just loved the development, loved creating positive feedback, seeing them change from year to year. So then I got into doing the 7-on-7 and then coaching high school. I was assistant. I was a DC at Corona High School for a minute, which was a great experience for me. Learned some things, was humbled, got my butt whooped in some games, realized at that time that, this game isn't about just me. It's about the kids. You know what I mean? And it's more than just, especially for high school, it's more than just winning and losing games. So, and then went from there, went to Oaks, coached there, and then went over to Calabasas the first time where they hadn't won any games. And we went around and we won some games, and we won a championship year 2. So then I left there, did an internship with the Cleveland Browns with Hugh Jackson. He took care of me over there, gave me an opportunity, learned some great things, got a mentor, Johnny Holland, the great Texas A&M linebacker who's at the 49ers now. He's a 49ers linebacker. Got a chance to be under him, came home. Willie asked me to come to Poly for him. Came to Poly with him and AP. And did that.
That was awesome, by the way. You guys, those years you were at Poly were far more impressive than anybody has any idea, by the way. But anyway.
You know what? The culture of Poly is so similar, and the history is so similar to USC that you can feel it and you understand it quickly. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just having the opportunity to be at a place like that with the expectations and stuff, it was awesome, man. It was awesome. And to be with all those guys, I mean, yeah, LeVar Arrington, TJ Hustonzada, you know, Antonio Pierce, we were all together on the staff. You had, who else? You had a couple guys, man. You had Hatchett. Hatchett was there as well. He was the OC. Eric King was there. So it was sweet, man, being with all those guys and just kind of seeing where the knowledge was and talking football pretty much every day.
Last question before I'll let the other guys hop on in here is, if you were to tell somebody what USC is all about, why USC is what it is, how would you describe USC as a university and the football program there? What is it? What's going on at USC?
The reason you go to USC, okay, you go for the education, you go to play high-level football, and you go to play in the NFL. Those are the three reasons you go to SC.
Yeah.
If you're going to SC for anything other than that, you should just be a student, right? Because the students still get those same things. Something special, you know what I mean? You come there with those mentalities. And if you come there with those mentalities, the guys that have come there are shown that from off the top have had a lot of success. And as you can tell with the numbers, a lot of guys in the NFL. So, yeah, I think SC, just as a whole, I mean, the alumni is great. You know, you're going to get that. But, again, every student gets that, right? So that's not different. What's different is the opportunity to play on that field. I mean, I used to love playing on ABC with Keith Jackson. You know what I mean? I love that. I love going in. I knew going in every game that every team wanted to beat us and they hated us. I embraced that. I love that. And that's what made me thrive. And I always said, like, no matter what, win, lose, or draw, they're going to know I was here. And that's the mentality that we need the kids to have moving forward. And the kind of kids we want coming in is like, hey, man. And even if that means being 3 and done, that's what it's about. Because if you look at the successful teams, that's what they're getting, right?
Yeah,
Guys that are there for 3 years, right? And the way it's set up now, hey, man, you come in early, you get your degree on your 3rd year anyways. You're out of there.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win. And if you don't, they did it for me. They allowed me to come back and finish my education. So I know for a fact that they'll take care of you. I've seen it personally.
All right, Mark, fire away. Mark Culkin.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. You know, I more league at that time. You were talking about what's happened to that program. Yes, I know there's been coaching turnover, but how much of an impact has the private schools, I'll say poaching, recruiting from the top public schools hurt the programs like the Poly? I remember back in the day when Banning and Wilmington, I would look forward to those programs playing. You don't even hear those names anymore.
Right. Well, I think when you look at it, it's a couple things. One, you can't move around in the district. So now when you go to public schools, they're more based on parity, right? They're more based on making sure that each school gets the right amount of money. No school gets more than the next school. So the private schools in that instance is winning because they don't have no boundaries, for one. I can live wherever I want and go there. And for two, the rules are different. So I think the private schools, when it comes to that factor, yeah, it's affected everybody in that aspect, not just Poly. I think it affects Calabasas, right? Mm-hmm. Calabasas is affected by that because you have Oaks Christian, you have Chaminade, you have, you know what I mean? You have private schools all around there. So you're competing with those, and those guys don't have the same rules that you have as a public school. This is different.
And I wanted to ask you about that too, Coach. When you were at Calabasas, like you said, when you first got there the first time around, that team hadn't won any games. Mm-hmm. You guys turned it around and won a championship. What did you guys do to change to get some kids to come up there and get that team to a level where they were championship caliber?
Well, I think the mentality was there. At the time, I was just a coordinator, and I loved being in that position, of course. And the guys came in and bought into what I needed them to do. And they realized, quickly that it wasn't about me. Yeah, I'm putting the system in. I'm going to coach you up. I'm going to be hard on you at times. I'm going to love you up at times. But I think at the end of the day, it was about them having success and setting up and making history. I wanted them to be able to, and they were able to do that. I mean, like, you may not know the kids verbatim, but if you say, oh, I went to Calabasas, those kids in that class, that 2015 team, they set it all off. They're the reasons they got it going the way it's going. So that's what football is about, is setting history. You may not be the only thing they talk about, but as long as you're a part of the discussion, man, you've done something great. You know what I mean? That's what it's about.
Right.
Coach, as somebody that played in the NFL and got to the highest level of football, when you're mentoring younger kids, when you're coaching younger kids that have those same aspirations, what's the biggest thing you tell them?
You got to love the game. You know what I mean? I think what's happening is everybody is playing the sport sometimes for the wrong reasons. Because at some point, it gets hard. It's very, very hard, and it's very taxing on you. It's very, whether it's a lot of expectation, whether it's whatever it is, it's very, very, very tough on you. And you gotta love the game where you can weather those things and go through it. So, I mean, if I'm gonna tell a guy that wants to play at another level, play college, you know what I mean? Like Johnny and them, I used to tell them, like, you have to love the pressure and you have to love playing at a high level all the time, not just when you want to. Whether it's practice, you know what I mean, competing against your teammates, competing against other teams, whatever. It's always got to be turned on, always.
On that note, have you ever had to have a conversation with a player who thinks they're good enough for a place like USC and tell them, no, you're not? Do they, do you have to put them in the right lane and kind of set the bar for them?
Well, I always think it's important to be honest with people. I mean, and the fact that you got to put them, to me, as a coach, you want to place them in a situation where they're going to be successful.
Sure.
Everybody is not a Trojan. Whether it's the way they act, their mentality. There's a certain mentality that I look at in a player that I don't care what your stars are. If you don't have the mentality and you don't have some of the things that I'm used to seeing from the guys that I play with, like Sammy Knight, I don't think you're a Trojan. And it's okay for you to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I wish you nothing but the best and great success. But that doesn't mean you're a Trojan. And it's not meant for everybody to go to USC.
Right. Did you know when you were being recruited to USC, was the number 55? What did that mean to you at that time?
It's funny because I wore 30 in high school because my brother's best friend, he wore 30. So I wore 30. And so when I got to SC, I wanted to wear 3. Keyshawn just got done with it. So I was like, oh, I'm going to turn this 3 into a defensive number. And I thank him to this day for this. John Robinson said, no, you're wearing 55. So the day I took my recruiting trip, they take you to the Coliseum and they go, oh, from Riverside, California, number 55, Chris Claiborne. And I was sold on it. And it was the best thing that he ever did for me.
With you
know what I mean?
it.
Yeah, and it was the best thing that he ever did for me. And it was the best thing for my career. I performed in that number, you are always going to be recognized. And all you got to do is handle your business, right? And I love that part of it. Oh, you want me to compete? Oh, shit, that's what I love to do. Let's do it. So that was all day, every day.
Right. What do you think the future of that number will be at SC? I mean, do you see anybody on the roster right now who maybe could be blessed with it their senior year?
I was hoping that we got Justin Flo.
Don't say the name.
People are still in tears.
I was hoping we got him, and I thought he was the perfect guy for it.
Yeah.
But for me, you don't put that number on a guy. You don't put that number on a guy as he's already there. You got to see his talent before he gets there. See, that was a blessing in it, right? Like whoever seen Willie, they seen Willie before Willie got there. So Willie was a freshman and wore 55. See,
Yeah.
I need that. You know what I mean? They picked me to wear 55 before I got there. When Keith Rivers came up, Pete Carroll brought me in the office. He showed me his film. I know Keith is from a military background, like my dad was. I knew that Keith was from Orlando at the time, but had spent some time on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So when he told me he wanted to wear a number, he was like, "What you think?" And I seen him play. I was like, "Yeah, that's the guy. Like, yeah, I think he can wear it." So he did well. He represented the number, played at a high level. So the key to it is seeing a kid's talent before he gets there. Don't give it to people like, no disrespect to the kid that was there. What he wore 35. What's his name?
Oh,
Cam Williams.
Yeah, Cam wanted the number. He wanted the number. We're like, no, that's not how you do it.
Yeah.
How you do it is coming in. I'm gonna give you the number, but these are the things you're responsible for as you go. And whenever you've done that, and people that have been good at evaluating the talent has done that, it's worked out well. When you just want to give it to people, it doesn't.
Is that how it works? Does a former 55 hand the jersey to the next 55?
It should be.
Yeah, it should be. I agree with you.
It should be. You should call Keith Rivers. You should call Willie McGinnis, and you should send them the film and be like, "Hey, what you guys think?"
Especially because that number is not retired. That's just a number that has symbolic meaning to our tradition. So, of course, I think you should, definitely have a conversation with the ones who wore it before you.
And just let them know what's expected of them. Like, the dudes that have worn this number are A1 guys. Like, you know what I mean? Keith Rivers is a great guy. Willie McGinnis, a great guy. Like, that's what's important. So as long as you can understand it, I think you're represented differently and are right.
Well, Coach, you might know a couple people in Heritage Hall. You might make a call and make the suggestions, make it happen. So just,
Well, hopefully, you don't have to do that. Hopefully they'll reach out to these guys and make it happen.
Hopefully.
Again, you know what I mean? Right now it's been on the shelf. And even with guys, wearing it like on their recruiting trips, like at the end of the day, don't just wear the jersey. Are you worthy to wear it? Are you a guy?
Right.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that's going to start day one for you or contribute day one? Because the guys that have worn 55, they play from the beginning.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question about the football program, and we talk all the time. And, look at the football program. And, from our perspective in looking at things, the football program has done a 180 since, I would say, the Holiday Bowl, and what are you seeing from USC right now? Because you pay as close attention as anybody.
I think that, you got good coaches in there that want to win. And I think that, you got each coach wants to bring each guy up to that level. And part of being a good program is like competing as a staff.
Yeah.
Right? You want to compete as a staff. You want to compete against each other, but compete with each other too against the other team. So you want to know when you're going into war that the guy you're going to war with has the same mentality as you.
Chris,
that's what you want.
I like to ask you, since you have experience at being around both NFL teams and college teams and high school, do you think there's a different type of coach for each level of football?
For sure. Definitely. I think that there's a different type of coach for each program. You know what I mean? Because expectations are different in different programs. So when you go to Miami, USC, Oklahoma, like it ain't no BSing. It ain't no messing around because you can only get a year, 6 months, they get you up out of there, right? Yeah. So even, and I think, Coach O will see that now. Like, you've won a national championship, right? The pressure to continue to do that is going to be crazy. And now when you're a champion, what does everybody want to do? They want to nitpick at you and take your guys and take the guys that, you know what I mean? So now as a coach, especially as a head coach, you got to be able to evaluate the newest up-and-coming talent and bring it in and see that it's going to help take your program to the next level.
Chris, what do you think SC has to do to get back to that?
I think it's just it's a toughness, man. When they were winning, especially in the 2015 from 2000s to 2010, probably I would say. It didn't matter if they played a SEC team, a West Coast team, Southeastern. It didn't matter, right? Because the mentality in football is all the same: physical, aggressive. I'm gonna finish more than you. And I think what's happened is we kind of got the stigma of being a West Coast team. And when you want to be a national champion, you can't be no West Coast team. You got to be it don't matter who you are team.
Right.
Is the athletic department, when Pete Carroll came to USC, you talked about how he reached out to you. Pete Carroll reached out to literally every single person that played at USC and embraced all that USC football was. And it just seems like maybe the last few years, some of that had slipped away a little bit. We would see you and Willie at games and consistently with Marv and so on. There'd be other guys. But it seems like right now, I really noticed it at the USC-UCLA basketball game. There were like 12 former players, like Dory and guys and
young guys at these young it's great.
So are you sensing that this athletic department, like Mike Bond and Brandon Sosa and those guys, and now the football program is making it a point to come back to you guys and embrace you guys again and get you on campus and get you supporting the team?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think I haven't got to meet my Bond, but I've seen that he's reached out to certain guys. But Sosa, man, I think that having a young guy like that's just came from the NFL and understands what it takes as a younger person to have that success. Yeah. He's hungry. They're hungry to prove and to bring back the tradition, right? And part of bringing tradition back is bringing the guys that have set the standard for the tradition. And in order for these guys to understand what it is, they need to hear from them. They need to see them. You know what I mean? They need the guys that, and it helps in all aspects, right? Recruiting, it helps in later on in life, business-wise, whatever. All these guys should be connected. When they come around and I see them, man, I show them nothing but love because, hey, you are the next guy. Mm-hmm. You are the next guy, and you should do the next guy the same way, right? I'm always on them about graduate. It took me for a long time to go back and graduate, but at the end of the day, what I've learned that no matter where or how much success I had, there was a ceiling on where I could go unless I got that degree.
Yeah.
We were talking about bringing the former players and the alumni back. On that note, how important is it for USC to bring Reggie Bush back into the Trojan family?
I think it's huge. The guy is, man, I mean, he's an integral part of SC history, right? Yeah. And he's a piece of the five, you know what I mean? Right. So I think it's awesome, you know what I mean? To be able to have a guy like that come back on campus and to be able to get somebody to possibly wear the 5 and us to find another 55. I mean, that, and those guys that play at a high level, that's saying that we all going in the right direction. You got to have your history together. I mean, shoot, if OJ can come back, man, why not OJ? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, man, he's an integral part of what SC has done, and he deservedly belongs to be back, and I hope that it works out in that way. I love it. I have had a chance to meet him personally. I know the people that we know, but they love him, so I look forward to meeting him and talking to him.
Well, I mean, he's been gone for 10 years. That's longer. I mean, it's so he just hasn't been around. So a lot of people haven't really spent much time around him. So I know he's itching to get back.
Well, June seems to be the target date.
Yeah. Well, I think when you're playing, you never know how much you love your alma mater until you're done playing pro ball, right? When you're done playing that pro ball doesn't have the same feel as college. Mm-hmm. College is special, man. It's nothing like college. And for some people, that's their high school. But for us, being able to go to USC, like, man, that's the Mecca.
Can you explain to fans how much it hurts when you see USC losing? Because, I'm sure you're familiar with the whole, message boards and the social media platform, and some of the things that are said can be kind of hurtful. I mean, we're all human. But I don't think the fans really understand how much it affects you as a former player just because you might not be outspoken about it.
Yeah, I mean, we want the program to always win, man. I think there's no question about it. And some things that people don't see, they don't understand, right? So that's part of the game too, right? That's why, like, when people talk about coaching, like, I always tell them, like, it's hard to criticize other coaches because there's so many aspects in this game that happen that you don't know about. So if you're a guy that does it professionally as a coach, like if you really coach, you know there's a lot of things that happen that are out of your control. And, I mean, there's times I've called the play and told everybody where the ball was going, and the guy still got yards. You know what I mean? So, you know, at the end of the day, it's about getting the right kids, developing the kids, the mentality, and because we're not on the field. You're not, as a coach, you're not on the field.
Right.
And the kids got to be able to hold that standard and want to hold that standard to you. For you.
One thing I learned about coaching is definitely a day at a time. You know, you work with those kids a day at a time, develop it all step by step. So I commend you for, you know, that level of dedication and commitment, Coach.
I appreciate it, man. I have fun with it. I mean, to be able to have them, you know, hit me up, talk to me later, or seeing them getting married, you know, having families. Like, I go, dang, man, I'm getting old. You know, time is moving by, right? But then you also get to have some great memories with these guys, man. And
right.
You know, I'm just, like I said, I'm just getting on my journey for coaching. I've had some good things. I've learned a lot too. So I'm looking forward to the next steps, man, and having a good time and really taking my coaching to the next level. Keep learning, continue to learn.
Did you play? You know, USC. This is background that kind of USC is unique in a way. You know, I went to UCLA, and a lot of people go to really, really great schools, and they don't ever have that sense of, you know, they don't take it with them for the rest of their lives. Obviously, and you guys are like you and Willie and Marv, you're from Southern California, and you went to SC, so there's a lot going on there just because it's where you're from. But you have Leonard Williams, guys, Dory's coming back all the time. Juju's at Pittsburgh, he's coming back. You have guys, even, you know, Keith Rivers, you're talking about, guys that come back even though we're from Florida or out of state. Were there guys in the NFL that you talked to where they had that sense of bond with their school that you guys from USC have?
You know what, man? I have no idea. I think that, you know, I don't know. It's just, I can only speak on our school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can only speak on USC. And when I came into USC, Willie pulled me aside and let me know. Brian Kelly let me know. Darrell Russell let me know. You know, Cedric Jefferson let me know. Like, Sammy Knight let me know what I needed to do to compete. You know what I mean? So I would say it would start with my hometown. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I personally never wanted to let my hometown down, but Sammy Knight was balling at USC. So I had to go ball. You know what I mean? So I felt like there's a responsibility to the guys I played to the side of me and the guys that played before me. Like I said, I wore 55. Like, Junior Seau always going to be the number 155 to most people. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. I love it. But as long as you're a part of that history and you've laid down some concrete in that history, man, that's the best thing that can
We should
happen
also
to me.
point out that you are the only linebacker at USC to win the Butt Kiss Award, which is the award given out to the top linebacker in the country in college football. You know, so that itself, I mean, that's exceptionally impressive in itself. But when you went to USC, how was the program when you went to USC versus maybe where it's at right now? Were there any similarities at all?
I think so. I think it could be in some ways. But I played with some dogs, man.
You did. You were naming them off right there. I was like, damn.
Yeah, right. Dalen McCutcheon was sweet at the corner. Yeah. Brian Kelly, sweet at corner. I don't know. I'm not involved in the program enough to make that statement.
Yeah, okay.
So I can't say that right now. Sometimes when people talk on certain things and they're not necessarily there day to day or entrenched in it, I think they're coming from the wrong place. Right. I think when you're not there every day, when you're not there every day and you're not seeing it, then you should speak from what you hope happens.
Yeah.
And you hope that, you know what I mean, that these guys want to just be great, and that in the fact of trying to be great, you'll put it on the field, and what you do on the field speaks so well, you don't got to say nothing.
Do you think the new safety rules that have been put in place over the years have hurt or helped football? As far as from a practice perspective.
It would have killed me. I wouldn't have played no games. They would have. I mean, I knocked out the quarterback from Arizona State. I would have been out that game. I've knocked out a couple guys, and they wouldn't have let me to play, man.
Yeah.
The rules are definitely hurting the defense because there's times in the game when you got to make a play, and now you're thinking about how aggressive you are coming to the play.
Right.
It's almost like they don't know how to tackle anymore. They're not sure how to tackle.
Right. Where can you hit a guy, especially a quarter? Can you hit him?
Right. And then these guys, and it's like, okay, so this guy run me over, and he's talking trash, and I got to watch how I put in my brain. Man, I definitely feel like a bad space for sure.
Hey, you know, we were talking about Brian Kelly when he mentioned that whether they're talking about the Notre Dame head football coach or who you played football with at USC. Every time I hear Brian Kelly, I immediately that vision of him dropping that pick 6 against Florida State pops into my head. I don't know if you remember that, but Brian Kelly.
I do. Lost 14-7 at the Coliseum.
I mean, we're talking about
you're freezing right now.
Played at USC. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're freezing. Let me see.
I am.
No, he's frozen, but we can hear you. We can hear you, Coach. Keep talking.
Yeah, we can hear you though.
Well, we were hearing you. In fact, I was going to ask him.
I think he's back.
If there was
back with us?
There he is. Coach, was there any particular USC game that one?
Okay, because you guys are going in and out. You guys are going in and out, so I can barely hear you.
All right. Well, hey, if we had this problem yesterday too. I think a lot of people are using Zoom that weren't using it.
Was there any particular USC game that what?
Was there any loss when you were playing there that really just you can't get over to this day?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that bad, huh?
Frozen.
Yeah, we lost him. Well,
I mean, it happens. This happened yesterday too.
That was a really good review, though. He provided a lot of useful information, a lot of good information.
No.
Yes.
Both guests tonight have been solid with their answers.
I think Cam Smith heard about the call.
Who?
That was the voice of Josh.
That was the voice of Josh.
Cam Smith heard.
Josh is ghosting us.
Yo, yeah, Cam Smith got.
Yeah, you know what though? That was a great answer. You have
right. I mean, it was honest.
I was gonna say.
Do you have another question for him?
The question was, which loss to this day has he not gotten over? That was my question.
Right, I'm going to ask him that by text.
I mean, I was gonna say in reference to that Cam Smith thing and everything else he was talking about, right? Like that's the mentality you need to have, right? Like that's what SC has gotten away from.
Right.
I mean, that's like because if you have guys on your team that have that mentality, you're not losing those games.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think part of that too, and who was the coach? Lane Kiffin, which I believe when Lamar Dawson came and they gave him 55. He might – I don't know if Lane addressed that the same way Pete did by calling, former guys and really discussing that and seeing if Lamar was the fit for that number. And no knock on Lamar. I actually thought he played solid when he wasn't hurt at USC, but he's not going to be a 55 that,
right.
laid any concrete,
Lamar was a very mature young man when he arrived, and he was physically mature.
Okay, the answer to the question about are there any losses or a loss that still are difficult to get over, and his reply was all of them. So then I asked him if there was a victory that stood out, and we'll see if he answers that one. He'll say all of them. Anyway, so Chris is somebody that I've gotten to know over the last few years, and obviously you guys know I think extremely highly of him, and it just the value that somebody like him could add to a coaching staff is just, to me, his evaluation skills, his helping out with X's and O's, and his recruiting, the impact that this guy can make on a football program is going to be significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
you can tell too.
We'll see if he gets something.
I really like.
I'm guessing he will. All right. Anyway,
I really like too when he was talking about just his whole philosophy, like even that he's kept. You know what I mean? Like since he's stopped playing, sort of that he transitioned into his coaching career and stuff. Like instilling that dog mentality into his players too, and I think it's like that's something that SC needs to get back to. Like the idea that it's Coach Negro was talking about it too. Like the idea that getting an offer is a big deal. Like it's not a place for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more of that they get back to, that's when you'll see,
exclusivity. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably going to be easier said than done to, go back to 46 offers, but you can keep it around 100.
Yeah, I think there's a modern way to do it.
Stanford does a pretty good job of staying under 100. I mean,
but they actually have, they have criteria that you have to be.
Right. I'm just, just throwing that out there.
But I mean, but they've done it. They've done it where they've always been the lowest number of offers in the Pac-12 by a boatload, and yet they were winning.
They're not going to offer every kid too, so that's
no.
Like
but you were right though. They were doing it and winning Pac-12 championships and almost getting to that next level, even with Stanford. It was amazing.
I tell folks all the time, if you didn't have to have a 4.0, Palo Alto would have about 2 national championships right now. I don't know what it is about that, but kids want to go there.
They do. I want to go there.
So
well, not anymore. Don't have that in me anymore. All right. Well, hey, guys. That was an extended version of our show. I'm going to make it free tonight. So, I'll post the links on all the Facebook pages, and then we'll have social media, and we'll have everything going on. And, let's try and promote it as much as we can on social media.
Tomorrow night, I know we already have a scheduled guest that you've had.
Jalen Davies,
but we're also going to be having Kari Jones from.
Yes. Well, we may have to put him off. I'll let you know as soon as I can. Darius Rogers may be available tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Well,
nice.
Okay.
That's the only reason. So I'm going to talk to Darius and say, hey, Darius, can you wait till Monday? Because we'll put him on Monday then. But I want to get Darius on as soon as possible.
No. You produce.
So I'm thinking Saturday for Kari.
My point being is these are the type of guests we're going to have on this show.
Yeah.
Kari Jones, Motivated Purposes. This dude hangs out with the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some great stories with players from every team. He's also a big women's college basketball fan, so he'll be able to talk about that. Brandon, I know you like to travel down that road. So you guys
Alyssa Peely is my gal.
Right. So that was my message that I wanted to add.
All right. Well, hey, guys. We'll look forward to then. We'll have we may have Kari tomorrow. So we definitely have Jalen Davies, and I'm gonna shoot a text to Darius. Darius sent me a text a little while ago, so I'm gonna hit him up and see if we can get something going with him. And next week we've already got some people scheduled for next week, so we'll try and end this week strong and see where this goes.
Sweet. Great.
All right.
Great show, guys.
Absolutely.
We're done.
Wow.
Awesome job.